Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Doctor, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Right off the bat, how are you managing the pandemic? We're about a year in now, right?
Right.
What are you seeing?
So I would say that the pandemic has been more difficult for me than I actually expected it to be. Because I would consider myself relatively well adjusted and good at managing stress and stuff like that. But the pandemic really, I don't know if you know, I don't know if you've been watching, but it's been like life-changing for me. And so I'm just really realizing a lot of things about myself and the world because of the pandemic. And so I'm at this point really, really mindful of what people are going through and the stress that people are under, because it really it knocked me over for a little bit.
When you say knocked you over, you personally, what you were encountering in your career with clients?
Yeah, so this is, it's funny because I wanted to talk about this with you, so I was actually happy that we postponed, because I was supposed to be here a little while ago. And so I wanted to postpone it until this information was public. But so midway through, early on in the pandemic, I started to notice I've been more stressed than usual, and so my kind of quirks, some of the quirks that I'd been feeling, and noticing all my life I've had quirks, but I started to notice they were a little more pronounced, and I started to wonder what's going on here. And so because of what I do for a living, I really, really started, I said to myself, I'm going to figure out what's going on, because this is weird. And I started kind of treating myself like I was a client. If my client told me all the things that I know about myself in my life, what would I say? And I came to the conclusion, I said, if I didn't know better, I'd believe this was autism. And so, yeah, I know, right? And so I started thinking to myself, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, given what I do for a living, how could it be possible that I have autism and never knew it? I'm 45 years old, right? But I said, I'm a pretty good clinician, and if a client told me all of this stuff, I would say this is autism. So I called an expert, and I just said, an expert in autism, and so we had a little just kind of a basic consultation. He said, no, it's perfectly normal. People with very, very high functioning autism, you often can't see it, and so they find out later in life, for whatever reason. And so I said, I need this answer. And so in the midst of this pandemic, I drove to Philadelphia and got an assessment from this team. And sure enough, I have autism.
Wow.
I know, right? And so it has been it just completely rocked my world, because it changed the way I have seen a lot of my life experiences. I now understand that a lot of the relationship difficulties that I've had in the past, a lot of my behaviors that sometimes rub people the wrong way, I understand now what it is. It's that my brain is wired differently. And what's cool about it is that I think that's the coolest plot twist ever.
I get it.
I mean, think about it. I've had an interesting life, and so I've overcome all this stuff, childhood trauma and poverty and mental illness and all this stuff, and I've become wildly successful. And to find out after all this time, this guy had autism the whole time. Are you serious? I'm like, listen, that makes me pretty cool. I don't care what anybody says.
We think you're pretty cool.
Right. So, but it really, I mean, imagine finding out that the world was slightly different than you believed it was for your entire life.
Yeah, that's like getting hit with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, and that's what it has felt like. It has been So there was a period of probably, I would say, about a month where I was just really, really struggling to wrap my mind around it.
Okay.
And just like sad and kind of confused and and also dealing with the fact that like I don't have the support system that I would have wished for. If I have a client who's going through something exactly like what I'm going through, I would say make sure you have your supportive family around you. Make sure that there's just tons of love around you to kind of keep you insulated. And I don't necessarily have that. I come from a family that's very much kind of like independent, do your, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of family.
Right.
And so it has been, autism is isolating. That's the one thing that, if you research autism, what you'll find is that because you think differently and you see the world differently, it can feel very isolating because most of the time you're like, why is everybody doing this? You know what I mean? It's like everybody in the room knows that the walls are pink, but you happen to see them as blue, and you're like, but they look blue to me. You know what I mean?
Got it.
And everybody else says they're pink, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you guys acting? You come on, look at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what it feels like. And so it can be very isolating. But what it has done for me, it has affirmed for me a lot of who I am, the things that I wondered about. Like, I wonder why I see the world so differently than all these people. Now I get it. Now
you have an answer. Now
I have an answer. And it's an answer that I'm okay with. You know what I mean? Like I'm cool with that. I'm simply wired differently. I mean, and so it tracks with the feedback that I've gotten my whole life. I mean, people meet me and they go, "That's just an interesting guy. He's a little different." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm different." And I now understand why. I used to say to myself all the time, I wonder why that is. Why is it that I see the world so differently than most people? Because I don't think of myself as like extraordinary or anything.
Well, are you seeing the world differently now, and you're understanding why? Is also the way you process information.
Yes.
You're very pragmatic. That's the one thing we connected on initially was you helped me become more pragmatic. As we talked initially, I wanted to become a more pragmatic thinker.
Yes.
And I've done that.
Yes.
And I'm working on that.
Yes.
But I saw you as an example of someone who does that
all the time. And I my understanding, and I'm not an expert in autism, even though I have it. I've literally known for a month that I have autism, right? Like I would say about 2 months ago, I kind of said to myself, I think this is true, and I'm qualified to say this, but I don't want to diagnose myself.
Right.
And then I went to the extra step, got an expert, and it's true. What I now know is that autism is very much a pragmatic thinking thing. It's like the world is very, very black and white to me, and logical. I have trouble thinking in a way that is illogical. And so neurotypical people have agreed to a lot of social conventions that are actually illogical.
Okay.
And so like the easiest example is your wife says, "Hey, how do I look in this dress?" Or do you think this is nice? Or do I look fat in this? Or right? You know that the correct answer, right, is no, honey, you look great.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Everybody knows
that's kindness.
That's the right answer. Right. But for me,
for survival.
Right. But for me, that doesn't make any sense because for me, the correct answer is to be honest.
Okay.
And so what happens is a person with autism or an autistic person doesn't do what the social convention is. They do what seems logical and honest to them. And so what ends up happening is you say things that people perceive as hurtful, and then you're the person with autism is left like, what do you, all I did was tell you the truth. I don't understand why that hurt you. Right. And because the problem is a lot of the social conventions, a high functioning person has learned them, but there are a lot of social conventions that I miss completely. Yeah. And it's weird because you think, how do you not know that? But it's because I can't see it. I literally can't see it. So there are often times when I'll have to say, I've learned over the years, even before I knew what this was, I've always known that I have this tendency to kind of say things that people think are weird. And so my practice now is I'll ask my wife, "Hey, can I say this?" And she'll tell me yes or no. And a lot of the time I literally don't understand when she says no, I'm like, why can't I say that? And she'll it's usually because that would hurt someone's feelings. And I just literally can't see it, because in my mind, why would you have feelings about that?
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you know,
that last statement does.
Yeah, because it's like, this is like, so for example, I'm very, very open about money, right? So if you and I consider us friends. You know, maybe if the lights in the cameras were on, maybe not. But you and I, in a regular conversation over lunch, you said to me, "So, how much money do you make?" I would tell you, and I wouldn't even have a feeling about it. You know what I mean?
It's a very unusual question, though, in today's society.
It is.
It should be.
Right, but I wouldn't see that as something to have any
I understand.
feelings about, because it's just a thing, right? I make as much money as I make.
Right.
I might wish to make more. I might be embarrassed if I make very little, but it still is what it is. And so, like, you know, I think I told you my career skyrocketed like 5 years ago.
Right.
And so I went from like poverty to wealth. And relative wealth, right.
But in a rapid time,
in a very small amount of time. The leap that I made in a couple of years, most people probably make in their whole life.
Got it.
Right, and that was very jarring for me and very kind of weird for me to be like, oh, so this is what it's like to have money, because it was so many new experiences. But I would be like telling people, oh my goodness, you know, like the first year that I did this and blah blah blah, and my wife would be going, you can't do that, you can't say that to people, because people will see that as you boasting or something like that. Right. And so my mind is like, well, nobody cared when I said I couldn't pay my light bill. I don't understand. Nobody. What's the difference? They're just facts. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the difference.
I get it.
And so what I have found is that that's what autism is like. I don't understand a lot of the social conventions that everybody else has accepted. But what I also say is I feel lucky to be wired in the way that I'm wired, because in my opinion, our social conventions aren't working. I mean, right? So I'm like,
good point.
Well, good thing I don't see them then.
Right.
You know, because so for example, the beginning of the pandemic, I needed something to do. Because I was working from home more, I was at home more, and there was a little bit of stress, and so I was like, I need a new outlet. So I decided to take up filmmaking. I wanted to learn how to make film. And so I just did that. I started reading books. I have a cousin who's a filmmaker, and I said, could you tell me what to read? And I bought a bunch of equipment. I spent a lot of money, embarrassing amount of money. But I just said, I'm diving in. I'm going all the way, because that's what I do. Right. I'm going all the way. I want to be good. I'm all in. And most people would not think at 45 randomly, you already have a career, you're successful. Let's just learn how to make films. Like actually learn how to make films on a high level with the intention of one day like truly making films. But I did, and so then I made this. So I decided to make my first like real short film. It's a documentary about my diagnostic process. I documented what it was like to try to figure this out.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Yep.
And so I did this film purely as a way to kind of practice my art, and I thought it'll be cool to document this process. And this film came out relatively well, and it's been accepted into a film festival, and so it's like, oh, now this dude's an actual filmmaker. Like, this is a legit filmmaker now. And most people, the average person, would have never gone down that path.
Right.
And but that's the way I live. I don't understand. That's one thing about me that's interesting. I don't understand not doing something that you want to do. I literally don't understand.
I'm your kindred spirit there, pal.
Yeah. Because a lot of people, you've seen this in your life. A lot of people say, oh, you know, one day I wish I could do this. And so I'm like, so then do it. And people are like, yeah, but it's not that simple. Sure it is. If there's somebody out there doing it, then that means it can be done. And I don't understand you saying you can't do it. Right. Maybe you choose not to do it, or maybe you don't have time, but it could be done. And that's the way I try to live my life.
See, I know that's how you're wired, and I just to me, that was just pure pragmatism.
Yeah.
And I really envied the way that you're wired. I didn't know before that you even told me, is because that to me is attractive, an attractive way to live your life. And I think most of us can't get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what's so interesting to me because so I would say that most people with autism are a little bit obsessed with something.
Okay.
Right? And what I figured out is that I'm kind of obsessed with understanding things. I love, and particularly people. That's my thing, which makes sense because that's the field I went into.
Right.
I found something that I really enjoy, and I dove in, and that's human psychology. But the thing that's most difficult for me to understand is why people choose to hold themselves back, right? So like you said, you know what will be cool? I'm going to do a show and I'll have these conversations and you did. Look at this. I mean, this is like,
Thank you.
It's like the coolest thing. I mean, I'm being serious. That's
Appreciate
the coolest thing ever.
Thank you.
And I tell, I have a show and I tell Danny, my director, like, you got to see this guy's thing. I'm like, we talk about you all the time. And it's like, but think about it. You just said, you know what I should do? I should just do it.
Right.
And you went and you got all this stuff and you like decked it out and it's the real deal. But think about how many people have the idea to do it and then don't do it.
I've never understood that either.
Yeah. I'm like, well, what are you doing then? Like, do the things that make you happy. Do the things.
Fear, right?
It's fear.
It's fear.
It's fear.
It's got to be. When I started the guitar business, I pushed back against all the, left a high-paying job to work on the internet. That was all the reasons I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But I felt so compelled to do it because I wanted to do it.
Right.
Nothing was going to stop me. And as it started to get momentum, people would say, I would love to do something like that. I would love to do. And I used to encourage people, hey, man, nothing special about me, pal.
Right.
You can do this tomorrow.
Yes.
So, wow, the fear thing is really something.
And I've had people in my life say to me, I don't understand how you do the things you do. Most people can't do that. And I always push back and say, no, it's that most people won't do it. It's not that they can't do it. It's that they won't do it. And,
they truly don't want it. If they wanted it, they would do it, right?
In my opinion, that's 100% true. If you actually wanted it, you would go do it. It's as simple as that. We do the things we want to do.
And we don't do the things we don't.
That's right. That's right. And you can. So this was a profound thing that I heard back in the day when I was doing photography. I don't do as much photography anymore.
Right.
But I was doing photography for a while. Again, another one of the things I randomly decided I want to do photography, and I had a studio in Pittsburgh.
Right on.
I did I did the whole deal. I had a really cool loft right in downtown Pittsburgh, and I did artistic nude photography, and I did like weddings and stuff like that to pay the bills.
Right.
And then, but my true love was the artistic stuff. But I was out doing a wedding one day, and a guy. He was getting ready, and I was taking his photos of him getting ready for his wedding, and he said that, I don't remember who he told him this, but the quote was, "How you live is what you believe. The rest is just talk."
Okay.
And
that's good.
That blew my mind.
It's good.
Because think about that, right? What you live, the way you live your life, that's your beliefs. When you say, I value this, or I do that, or I care about this, that's talking. Right? Show me. Right. Show me what you believe in. Right? And so for me, when I say, you know what I should do? I should learn to be a filmmaker. Well, I'm going for it. It's going to be all the way. And I might figure out a year from now, well, I'm not great at filmmaking. I might figure out, I don't have the time, and that doesn't make sense for me, and I'll choose to stop. But it won't be because I'm not going to just not do it.
Not do it.
Right.
If you're compelled to do something.
And that's I feel compelled.
Right.
I feel like I would jump out of my skin.
If I couldn't do it.
Right.
Or I chose not to do it.
If I chose not to do it, it would eat at me. And so someone said this to me yesterday. Someone called me about something random, and then they were like, what's going on in your life? And I told them about the movie and the film festival, and they were like, you're amazing. You live your life so openly. And
Okay.
I say I don't understand the idea of not doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I live with a sense of urgency. I really do.
Have to.
Yeah, because I don't know how much time I get, and I'm not going to be complacent. You're not going to catch me like, oh man, I should have done that. No, that's not going to happen with me. I'm doing it, and you might find me saying, "Wow, I'm tired," because I did too much. But I'm not going to say, "I wish I'd have gotten to this." That's not going to happen with me.
Yeah, I don't know why we're so limiting on ourselves.
Yeah.
Why I don't know if it's a phenomenon. I don't know if the world around us has conditioned us to believe we can't.
I think it is. I think the world teaches us to stay in our lane. And so
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, we are taught. American culture is kind of like, listen, find your thing, do your thing, put your head down. Like, it's every man for himself. Like, do what you can do.
Doubt.
Right? And I just don't think that way. I'm the antithesis of that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to wake up. If I decide today that I want to wake up and like, you know what? I should be this, even though I was, I spent 10 years straight after I decided to go back to school and get credentials and go, into the mental health field. I went to school for 10 years straight, got a PhD in psychology.
Right.
And now I'm like, I really like this filmmaking thing. I could see myself doing that. And so I now understand if the right set of circumstances happened, I could walk away from the other career.
Totally get it.
And people are like, that makes you, I don't know, like, whatever, wishy-washy.
Yeah, or space alien.
Yeah, people are like, that's weird, or that's not a good thing. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to live it. I'm going to live this life. I'm going balls to the walls, like, the whole time, and I'll pivot on a dime if I need to. And the only thing that I require of myself is that I try to be honest, with myself and with everybody else. That's what and it probably sounds, I don't know, people say like, oh, you're like a Boy Scout. You have this idealistic view of the world. And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean,
but why not try to do it right? I mean, I don't understand why.
Wasn't the oath created, the Boy Scout oath created out of goodness?
Exactly.
Kindness?
You're telling me that like it's a bad thing.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure Boy Scouts are cool.
Yeah, I get it.
And so, yeah, that's just the way I live. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's more fun, I think, to live that way.
I believe so. It's invigorating for me knowing that I don't know what's around the corner. It would be weird for me to feel like, so this is what this is my life for the next 50 years. This is it. Like it's going to be like this every day. No,
exactly.
No, I got to do some other stuff.
Yeah, you're having this conversation with the right guy. I can assure you, because I don't. Is it more about the entrepreneurial brain versus the non-entrepreneurial brain? You think that plays into it at all?
I do. I've known for a very long time that I've always been entrepreneurial. And I don't know what that is. That's a personality trait.
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
I didn't believe that early on.
Okay.
Because I used to say to people that were working either 9 to 5 with me as I was branching off, or once I left and they were still 9 to 5 and complaining about it, I used to say, look.
Yeah, right. What are you
making
doing?
Way more money here.
Yeah.
You could do this with your eyes closed.
Right.
But they don't.
They don't
leave.
And so like it's a personality trait, and if you could do there are all these like assessments that you could take, and you would come up like super high in entrepreneurialism and probably creativity and all these other things. Same with me. And so I do understand that there are people who don't have that, right? They just don't have the interest in.
Is it interest or is it fear, Doctor? Is the interest really? Is the spark really there? Maybe we just don't engage it. Maybe
that's possible. Yeah, it may be. What I tend to find is that. So, for example, I've learned that medical doctors are rarely entrepreneurial people. Okay, so I didn't know this until
you would think they would be.
Exactly, but apparently the way medical doctors are trained, it kind of teaches them. Look, find some place that will employ you, see as many patients as you can, make as much money as you can, help as many people as you can. I don't want to have to worry about like building a business, blah blah blah. No, let somebody else do that. You go in there and be the doctor, and because it's like to have a brain that is functioning on that level where you can literally cut somebody open and like, you know what I mean? You got to be pretty dialed in.
Right.
And I have a lot of respect for that.
Right.
But their training encourages them to just kind of like, no, be the doctor, right? And that is a thing. Don't get me wrong. That's a reasonable thing to know your lane and kind of be in your lane. But I think there's also something really cool about the person who says, no, there is no lane for me. I'm doing it all. You can't stop me. Like
absolutely.
I mean, that to me is those are the people that change the world. In my opinion,
there's no question. Look at the titans in any industry, the quote unquote titans in any art or anything. The people that make it.
Yeah, it's always the people who refused those conventions. And so I'm like, then you'll find me over in this box over here. Like the people who refuse to be in any lane, the people who on any given day might decide to do, there's no shortage of groundbreaking ideas in my head. And on any given day I might decide, you know what, I'm going for it. But I do recognize everybody doesn't have that. I mean, and I've talked to people who just say like, I don't really have ideas like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what I've learned is whatever's in your brain is what's in your brain. And the other thing, because of my training in psychology, I can see this in a way that a lot of people don't.
Okay.
It is that your brain is a muscle, right? And it works the way your brain works. And so, there are some people whose brains are super duper strong, right? And think of it like an engine, your car and an engine. If you had a Ferrari that is well tuned and well built and well oiled, you going 150 miles an hour just wouldn't be that difficult, right? But if you're driving a Honda Civic, getting it to 150 miles an hour is going to be quite difficult. And so people have the brain that they have, and you have very little impact on that. That's the interesting thing.
That's genetics then.
That's genetics, right?
Okay.
And so, somebody like Bill Gates, absolute genius, right? And so he can think of things that other people wouldn't think of, and thankfully he pursues those thoughts,
right,
and I mean, he's changed the world with his thoughts, and so like Mozart or John Coltrane or Steve Vai. There are people who you realize, whoa, thank goodness they don't think like us. You know what I mean? Because look at all the cool stuff that they created.
learned that early on, dabbling with guitar.
Yeah.
I kind of figured that out my own right. There are some guitarists that are just coming from a different space.
Yeah.
And you can practice everything, repetition's everything, but there's some people just have something different.
I mean, you listen to music of like Jimi Hendrix and you realize like, I don't care how long you studied.
Yeah. Where that came from.
Right.
That was purely organic.
That's right.
To him.
That's right. And it is that in his brain there was this special thing, and then he was introduced to the guitar, and those his brain and that guitar got along real well.
No doubt.
And here we are,
no doubt,
years later listening to his music, and so I'm a firm believer in whatever gifts you've got, take them out for a spin, go for it, do what you can do with it. But a lot of people are afraid that, well, if I do what's in my brain, people will think I'm weird. And I'm like,
is that what their fear comes from? Is it embarrassment or is it scorn from
everybody?
Other people?
Everybody wants to be accepted, and everybody wants to succeed.
Okay.
And so, if you believe this, oddly enough, this is what I did my dissertation on. The idea of self-efficacy.
Okay.
It's a person's belief in their ability to accomplish a task. Okay. And self-efficacy is strongly predictive of success. If you it's like it's like all those old sayings. If you believe you can, then you can. If you believe you can't, then you can't. Right?
Both are right.
They're both correct. That's right. And so what I've learned is that when people believe they might fail, they will just back off of a goal simply because failing isn't fun, right? And so there are some people who, for whatever reason, are wired differently. Sometimes autism can do it, but there are other things that could do it as well. Make it so that you don't mind so much that possibility of failure. So for me, like I ran for Congress, right? And what I didn't know at the time was it made absolutely no sense for me to run for Congress. I didn't have any of the requisite stuff in place to run for Congress, but I did it anyway. And by all accounts, I did really, really well. And that set me up for all this other stuff. There are some people who would have said, well, you can't win, so why would you do it? And I just don't think that way.
Yeah, I don't either. But people question, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
because you become the odd one.
That's right. You're the odd one, and that's if I could wrap up autism in a nutshell, it's that it's always being the odd one, and so a person who so for example, like Bill Gates, the world believes he has autism. I don't think it's been confirmed, but we believe it based on his behavior and what you can see about him. But the idea is a person like that, if they are willing to be odd and unapologetic about it, they can do all kinds of cool things. No doubt. And it's like, so for me, I'm like, man, I'm so happy and thankful for having this, weird wiring system, because
it served you well.
It has served me very well.
No, there's no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade it. Now, there are downsides, feeling alienated all the time. It's difficult. But
you're an emotional guy. You have the capacity to I mean, no one having conversation with you, I think, would ever pick up on this.
So that's what's interesting is if we are in a casual relationship, you'd never see it. If I chose not to tell you, you would never know.
Right. I would have never known.
If we are very close, you'll know. Yeah. Because so what I have figured out, and this is relatively common among high functioning people, my intelligence allowed me to figure out the social conventions for these interactions, and to know how to manage it, and to kind of curb my desires to do things that would be considered weird. And so I learned.
You adapted.
Yeah, you adapt. But in your very close relationships, your family of origin, your spouse, your adult home, there's less desire to adapt, because I'm at home. I want to be me. Right. So being me can turn a person. So for example, you and I in this conversation right now, it's cool because you're saying, I put a microphone in front of your face, I want you to just go for it, right? So I do it. But I want to have this kind of conversation all the time. At home, like when my wife wants to watch TV, I want to be doing this. I want to be chewing on the world's problems.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
I can see that.
And so,
I can see that.
If you're talking, when I'm trying to talk to my brother and like, hey man, how's it going? And he wants to shoot the breeze, I want to talk about like, yeah, but what do you think about that? You know what I mean? Like, and people are just like, you have to chill, man. Like, I don't want to always be doing that. But I'm like, why? Why would you not want to solve the problems of the world? I don't understand why you'd want to watch The Real Housewives. Like, what?
See, yes, me
I
too.
don't understand that.
Okay, so let's continue this.
Okay.
So, I have a hard time with. I don't have a hard time with people who do this. I have a hard time with the concept of doing this, and that this is watching television hours upon hours upon hours, or plopping myself in one spot and staring at a screen for. Now, maybe I'll work and stare at a screen for a while on a computer, which I don't know what the difference is, but I can't see. I just view television as such a colossal waste of time.
Yes.
I don't say that from a.
I know what you mean.
You're
not being condescending. You're not judging.
No,
I know what you mean.
But anytime I ever bring that up, I'm taking as a very condescending asshole.
Yes.
That's how I'm
100%.
viewed. That's how I'm viewed.
And
I don't mean it that way.
I'm 100% with you. And it's about, for me, it's productivity. Because I feel like I don't know how much time I have on Earth. I need for my time to be used wisely. And I believe in my heart that some degree of unwind is great. So, my wife says, I do this to unplug. I do it to unwind. I just need something mindless. Okay, cool. And if you do that for an hour every now and again, great, wonderful.
Right.
But for me, if I did that for any more than, an hour or two every now and again, I would be like, what am I doing? Why, there's so much to do. Mm-hmm. There's so much to get done. I want to be up and at 'em. I want to be interacting with the world and fixing things and solving things.
Right.
And
so you're driven.
I'm just
driving.
I'm just so driven. And so, yeah, when I hear people telling me that they come, and this is the average person. I believe the average person comes home from work, have some dinner, and then they watch TV until bedtime. I think that's
especially in the COVID era.
Right.
I think that's more people do.
That's what people do.
Right.
And this is how bad it is. My son was clearly struggling with, I don't have enough time with dad because I'm always working. So he was like, can we watch TV every now and again? Will you sit and watch TV with me every now and again? And of course, he's my son, so I said yes. So now Mondays and Wednesdays at like 7:00, that's TV time, and we watch an hour and a half of television together, and that's a way for us to bond.
Right.
And for me, that is time well spent because it's what my son wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But like, if my son is out hanging out with friends or he's doing his homework, I would never choose to just watch television ever. And if it weren't for the other people in my home, I wouldn't even own a television. I wouldn't need one. Mm-hmm. But I do understand that when you say that, it sounds condescending because people are thinking like, oh, so you're just all high and mighty. You're always productive and us commoners are sitting here doing nothing. And I'm like, listen, you do whatever you want to do. I'm just saying, I believe there are better ways for me to use my time.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
what am I getting out of that? Like, a couple years ago, I started asking myself in every circumstance, what am I getting from this?
Yeah.
It's really been helpful.
Yeah. That's a great question.
I didn't know why I didn't do that earlier in life, but yeah, in the moment, it's even that way with things. I love baseball, and I used to be able to plop myself down and mindlessly watch a 3 or 4 hour baseball game, and then it became really non-productive. So I was here listening to the game and doing something else.
Yes.
And I can function in that capacity and still enjoy it, but not be absorbed by it.
And not be consumed, right.
Yes.
And I say that all the time because I stopped watching football. I used to be a hardcore Steelers fan.
Right.
And, on a Sunday, you can lose 3-4 hours watching football.
Yep.
And, heck, there's guys that watch the entire day of football, so they lose the entire day.
From like 9 a.m. until like midnight.
Yeah. And so I gave up.
They're called gamblers.
Right. And I gave it up. And now I look back and I think, I can't even imagine scheduling a 4-hour block every Sunday to make sure I watch this football game that I have nothing to do with. I just can't even imagine that anymore.
Yeah, I can't either. And it's but in this town especially, we're so drunk on the
my
Steelers.
Goodness.
It's like building into the culture of the area.
Saying you don't watch the Steelers, that's sacrilegious. I mean, people are like, what the heck is wrong with you? Yeah. But I in my opinion, I'm like, there has to be something better you could be doing.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not telling anybody else, stop doing that.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I'm always evaluating myself. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I'm like, no, there's no way. I'm not, that to me, that feels like 4 hours of nothingness. Mm-hmm. And now, don't get me wrong. I might go fishing and be gone for 3 hours, 4 hours. But that, to me, I'm out in nature. I'm out in, I'm.
And you're thinking like a son of a bitch.
Oh my
right?
goodness!
Is that the place you're thinking?
I'm just the wheels are turning, and I'm figuring stuff out, or I'm decompressing.
What does that look like for you? What's decompressing look like for you?
For me, it's.
Can you get mindless for a while?
I don't get mindless. I really don't. But I get kind of contemplative and relaxed.
Okay.
So every day I sit in my hot tub at the end of the day, and it's probably 15, 20 minutes, and it's just me looking up at the stars. No, phone's not near me. It's just my time to decompress and let my mind kind of sort through some of the things that I wasn't able to get through in the day. And it just really helps. And I try not to have a day where I don't get in that hot tub. And I've just found that hot water and the sound of the jets and the stars, it is just very, very soothing to me and helps me unwind and shut it down for the day.
Okay.
So for the most, that helps a lot. And like music is a big one.
Me too.
Whether it's listening to some of my favorites or actually making music, either way, that is very soothing to me. That's nurturing to my soul.
Right.
And I can count on that to kind of like, if I'm keyed up and not in a good place, a couple of hours in my studio working on stuff, and I probably will feel fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to turn this a little bit here because I know I'm limited on time with you today.
Yes.
I'm not used to that, so bear with me. Bear with me. Two subjects I definitely want to hit on. One is of less consequence, and that's this Dr. Seuss mess.
Yes.
But I do want to go back because I haven't seen you since before the election.
Yeah.
It's been that long.
Right.
So I want to talk a little bit about how that played out, and I want to talk a little bit about the mess at the Capitol.
Okay.
And then talk about some of the polarizing response, especially as we all connect on social media. That's where everybody's at.
Right.
Why is it just so caustic right now?
Right. So yeah, the whole election process, it was a debacle in my opinion. The whole thing is a debacle.
Why? Like, what were the major reasons why?
So the very idea that the two people that we were voting for are the literal best two people that we could come up with to choose from as leader of this country.
I concur.
Yeah, that to me is mind-boggling. Like, are you serious?
Did you feel compelled to absolutely choose between those two, or did you feel possibly compelled to vote third party or anything else at any point in time?
I used to be the kind of person that would go third party. In fact, I almost ran third party when I ran for office, because I fundamentally believe that this two-party system that we have is broken. And so I'm actually more Green Party than anything. Okay. However, having run for office and seeing behind the curtain a little bit taught me third party's not going to happen. Not in America, not today. And the reason for that is that the two parties have become so entrenched that it's us versus them at all cost. And so voting, you're not going to get enough of them to vote third party for it to matter.
Right. No one will break apart.
That's right. Right. Even when they know. So for example, you could have a third party candidate that we all know in our hearts would be a better idea than the Democrat or the Republican. But everyone is going to say, well, not enough people would vote for that third party person, so I'm not throwing away my vote on that third person. I'll pick whichever one of these two is better. That's what people think. And so how
do you break that mindset? Is it possible?
Today, I'm not convinced. No, it's possible. I shouldn't say it's not possible. It is possible. It'll be very difficult. And the reason I say that is I'm convinced that what we actually need is outside of the political arena altogether. And so
meaning, what do you mean?
So I believe that people like you and I, we recognize that America.
Let's run.
Yeah. So I actually this is one of my hot tub thoughts. I figured out that you break the whole thing down and it's never going to work. Okay. And I think I have figured out that the system itself is broken. It's America. America is essentially a bad idea. Okay, and in order to fix it, I don't believe we could use the political arena. I don't believe a government office is what would fix America. I don't believe that anymore.
Okay.
I used to believe that it could be done through politics, but I no longer believe that's feasible. Is it possible for some transformational leader to become president and change the world? Yes. The likelihood of that is slim to none today.
In this current system.
In our current system. So what I believe should happen is a complete and utter culture shift.
Okay.
We need to change our culture. But I digress. I want to talk about the current system and Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Everybody was so polarized, right? So you got people who like the things that Donald Trump seems to stand for, and so they're going.
Do they even know what that man stands for?
Well, I think I think what it is. I've thought about this because, in my opinion, I'm like, how's it possible for somebody to actually like this guy, right? But I think what it is we're so us versus them that anyone who's championing my values, even on any level, even if it's not real, even if they're giving lip service to my ideas, I'm voting for him, unfortunately. And it doesn't matter that he's a bad person. It doesn't matter that he lies a lot. It doesn't matter because they're going to say everybody lies, and the Democrats are corrupt in all these different ways, and they want to do all these different things that I don't like. So I'll just hold my nose and vote for Donald Trump. So then you got people who are the opposite. Donald Trump is the devil. I don't care, who we get to run against him. Pick that person, and I'm going for it no matter what. And then you get Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and so
I still can't believe that's what happened.
Yeah.
I'm sitting back. It just rushed past me almost. Like I knew it was coming, and it just passed me. But that was the best we were given.
Yeah, it's total insanity and
senility versus lunacy.
Yeah,
that's how I view it. It's disparaging to say that, but that's how I view it.
But I understand what you mean, and I don't think you're wrong. I think to myself, how is it possible that out of all the people, hundreds of millions of people in America,
look at the people in the undercards. They were so much better than who ultimately got it.
But it's because the system will always do this. Our current system will do this because our system is driven by something other than right and wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Our system is driven by money.
Yeah.
That it's as simple as that. Yeah. And so when I said America's a bad idea, that's what I mean. America is fundamentally a bad idea because we created a system that values money more than we value people. And so in that system, you're always going to do the thing that maximizes profit.
Right. You see it every day.
Right. It happens every day. And so, I mean, if you think about any industry, think about our food, right? In America, there are foods that we eat that you're not even allowed to eat in other places because they're banned, because they have, weird chemicals.
It's not real food, it's chemicals.
Exactly. And the only paradigm in which that could ever happen is one where profit is more important than people.
Good point.
That's the only way that would work.
Right.
And so in order to fix it, you would need for people to no longer feel that way, right? People would have to stop valuing money so much that they discount and hurt other people.
Is there any place on this planet that's more like that? I mean, you can say the European system maybe, but is there any specific place that you're aware of that more like that?
There are people that ask me that all the time, and I am honest in saying I'm not good enough at geography or anthropology or whatever system you would need to be good at to name them. But what I'd be talking about is cultures where that are considered undeveloped right now. So like there are tribes in Africa. There are, indigenous people in like Brazil and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. And there are places where they don't get into like money and material thing. Right. Wealth is not a thing. There are places where wealth is not a thing. And those places get it right. Now, I also don't believe it's necessarily reasonable to say to people in America, stop liking wealth. Because that cat is out the bag. It's very difficult to put that cat back in the bag.
Yeah.
So then what I believe would need to happen is that we simply say, all right, well, why don't we split the difference? Wealth is cool, and America's all about the idea that you can make as much money as you want to make. Cool. But then you have to have the context of a culture that values above all things people and love, right? If you did that,
the desire for the wealth would go away.
Right. That is exactly. Eventually, so I put a lot of thought into this, and what I think would happen. So if you make it so that, so I think of it this way. Think of it like this. America is like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Okay. So, but think about it. You go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, they say it's all-you-can-eat, but in all fairness, you know that's within reason. There's a little asterisk beside it that says, you're not going to go up there and take literally all the food. That wouldn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Who would really do that? Right? But in America, it's an all-you-can-make buffet, right? You can make as much money as you want to make. And if you have enough money, you can pretty much even break the rules, right? And so that being the case, if we don't superimpose on top of that a culture in which doing the wrong thing is unheard of, then you're screwed, because people are all, it's like, it's a system where the bad guys have all the advantage. Because
it's hard to argue that.
Right? Because, I mean, so if you think about, like, you know, any movie you've ever watched, when have you ever seen the super greedy, super wealthy, like money hungry guy is the good guy? It's never the case, right? And the only times you ever see that is Iron Man and Batman, and what's the overarching theme in their lives? An overwhelming desire to do good. That's the only way it works. Right? You can't have you can't have Superman if he's a jerk. If Superman's a jerk, you're screwed. Right? But in America, we've actually created a situation where you could literally be Iron Man, Batman, but there is no desire to simply do right. Because think about it. If Jeff Bezos decided he wanted to end poverty, he could end poverty.
You mentioned that to me a few shows back, and I've had that conversation with people, and the eyeballs just open. Like, it's amazing the response people will give you. A lot of people. Like, wow, that would theoretically be possible.
It's possible. Today, you could be Batman. In America, you could literally be Batman, because if you have enough money, why couldn't you just, like, think about it. I live in, I'm from Washington, PA. How many homeless people are in Washington, PA? Not a ton, but there are some. But there are also tons of vacant vacant buildings everywhere. If you had enough money, why couldn't you just buy all the properties and give them to the homeless people, and now there's no homeless people? It's not even that difficult.
Problem solving.
It's basic problem solving. The problem is, in America, we value our money more than we value those people. That's the only reason it doesn't happen. Because if Oprah Winfrey's walking down the street and sees a homeless person, she has to know, I could solve that problem. She has to choose not to. Right? And for the average person, for you and me, I don't have enough money to solve those problems. Right? So for most people, it wouldn't matter. But for the people who have some gift, you are
Elon Musk.
You're Elon Musk. You're
Gates.
Oprah. You're Kevin Hart, or you're what's the guy?
Rock.
LeBron James, or somebody who, for whatever reason, you have something that we value, and you've made a ton of money with it. You can do whatever you want with that money. It's just that we choose in America. People like LeBron James, he opened a school. Oprah Winfrey has done cool stuff.
No doubt.
Given lots and lots of money. But if you're a billionaire, that means you've hoarded a lot of money. Right?
I think of one, I hate to call this person out, but this guy puzzles me. Larry Ellison of Oracle Corporation. He's like 6th or 7th on the list. And I'm not saying that him and his current wife or whatever haven't done, I'm sure there's charitable stuff. But there's a guy that you just say, wow, he doesn't ever come off as philanthropic.
Right.
It's like, wow, Larry, what are you doing?
He's
buying islands, like multiple clusters of, he's buying whole cities.
That's crazy.
Just to own that, to stare at it.
And
it's really hard for me to wrap my head around it.
And to me, that speaks volumes about the flaw in American culture. Because so I don't remember whether I even told you this or not when last time we talked, but I learned a lot about this from an African student that I had.
Okay.
And so we were talking about collectivism versus individualism.
Right.
And he's from Nigeria, and so he said in Nigeria it's a collectivist culture, and so he talked about how interesting it is that in America the idea is you put your kids out when they turn 18 or 21 or whatever. It's like, all right, you're on your own now, get out there into the world. And he said that in his culture, that doesn't make any sense. And he said, you could do it. You could put your kid out at 18, but who would do that? And that really stuck with me because I'm like, yeah, you can't make people do the right thing. It has to be that there's a culture that just frowns upon doing the wrong thing, right? You don't need to say you're required to put X percentage of your income into charitable act, right? It has to be that you would simply want to, and that everyone would be like, I would wish for a world where being a billionaire is embarrassing. That's what I would wish for, because think about it. I mean, how much to live here, right? We're in, Coraopolis. And so you could live out the rest of your days on like $10 million. You would never need another. You'd probably need less than that.
Way less than that.
You could probably do it. Like, if right now in Washington, PA, if I still lived in my home in Washington, PA, you give me $5 million, I would literally never need another dime.
Yeah.
And so think about it. If you are a movie star, if you're a professional athlete, if you're something where you're making millions of dollars a year, after like $5-10 million, you no longer actually need money. So then what are you doing with the rest of the money?
Right.
What you could do theoretically is just help other people. And so then how's that not being Batman? How are you not a superhero? You see what I mean? It's like, well, if you had a way to just generate tons and tons of money, you could just go around solving problems.
Yeah, and this is where you changed my thinking many shows ago. When you get into the realms of, I like to just pick a number, 500 million and above.
Yeah.
Take all the folks who are doing 500 million net worth above, and we're talking some are catastrophic numbers.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yes.
It's almost like they have the same wealth as some smaller countries.
You're right. Absolutely.
And I don't know, and I don't want to criticize those people because their entrepreneurship and their genius.
Yes. Good for them.
I salute them.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, what is the value of I get it. What is the value?
Right.
Is there any greater good value there?
And think about it. It's like having too much food. Having food is important. Everybody needs food. You need food every day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had so much food that you literally couldn't in your whole lifetime eat it all, you would intuitively know to give it to other people.
Absolutely.
Because it'd be like, I don't want this food to go to waste.
Right.
But in America, we have set up a culture where it doesn't feel like wasting money to have it sitting,
to hoard it,
to sit it in a bank account and look at it. And so there are people who are driven by,
how'd that happen?
It's the American way. Think about it. When America started, the original idea was this free market, the idea that people should be free to make as much money as they want to make and make a way for themselves. But what they didn't also do was embed within that culture a desire to be connected to each other. It's all about individualism. And if it's every man for himself, my job is to make as much money as I can for me and mine. So if I have $5 billion, I'm going to sit it in the bank. When I die, I'm going to give it to my kids.
Yeah.
So then it really helps basically like 4 people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Whereas if we borrowed from some of those older cultures and said, no, you're allowed to make as much money as you want to make. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do, but never forget about your connection to others. And never forget that being a good steward of your wealth is of the utmost importance. Then all this
important is earning the wealth.
It's in my opinion, is more important.
Yeah.
Right. So then all of a sudden, the Oprah Winfreys of the world, the Warren Buffetts of the world would literally be solving all the world's problems. Mm-hmm. And think about how much better the world would be. Mm-hmm. Right. And so why
doesn't that happen? Because for all intents and purposes, Bill Gates seems like a fine man.
Yes.
I think Elon Musk is a little crazy.
Right, but he seems like a good dude.
I think he might be autistic.
Actually, that makes some sense.
I don't know, but I mean, like, he's doing amazing things, and they're employing a lot of people. I'm all for that stuff. But why don't they get that concept?
Well, it's culture. We are raised in a culture. So your values come from your culture. And it's very, very difficult to go against the grain. And so for the average person, if you are steeped in American culture, you understand that you're supposed to be chasing money. Now, what happens is, here's the weird thing. There are people who get it and don't think that way. And you know them and I know them. That in any given town, you go to any small town, close your eyes and put your finger on a map, go to that town, there will be a handful of people who are doing the Lord's work, so to speak. They are giving their life to helping kids, and they're running social service agencies and doing all this wonderful stuff. The problem is, those kind-hearted folk, the Mother Teresas of the world, they tend to not also have the traits that make them even want to pursue wealth.
Got it.
Right? So then you've got somebody over here who's meek and humble and giving blood, sweat, and tears to helping people. And then you've got someone over here who's got a system for making bunches and bunches of money. What you actually need is people who have both. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's very rare. For whatever reason, that's just very rare. And so, what I believe is someone would have to do it. Someone would have to not only live by example, but live very, very openly and say, hey, everyone, watch me. I'm going to go buy this house and give it to the homeless guy. You gave him a sandwich. I'm going to give him a house. Right? And not only am I going to give him a house, I'm going to give him $100,000. Mm-hmm. And watch me live. And the reason I say that is we would need a true shift. You would need to say, oh, wow, that was really cool. Mm-hmm. I think I want to do that. You'd need to have people aspiring to be Iron Man. You know what I mean?
Almost aspiring to be opposite of what they're aspiring to now.
That's right. You would need, so someone would have to do it and do it loudly, right? Because there are people right now, Dolly Parton is like, so I read somewhere that she'd be a billionaire if she kept all of her money, but she just gives it all away. Right. But she does it quietly.
Yeah. They don't have the platform. You think they'd have a platform, but it doesn't. Obviously, they don't, because it doesn't resonate.
It doesn't resonate. But I actually believe that one of the reasons it doesn't resonate is, again, in America, we have this culture of don't be boastful, don't be loud about the good works that you do, because somehow that's seen as not a virtue. Like if you're feeding a homeless person and you got to tell me, then it's
don't put it on Instagram.
Yeah, but my thing is, no, we need to change our culture.
That's how you get people.
That's right. And so the one beauty of our current culture is that social media has created a situation where we could theoretically have a big, huge meeting where we could say, listen, everybody, can I have your attention? We have to stop being jerks. I think we should just kind of be nice to each other. Can we all agree on that? Okay. All right. I'm going to start. I'm going to give all these people houses. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, but I really think we should do this. That's what we need.
Okay. So let's take that thought for a second. All right. So this is good. 2 questions. Shouldn't that person you just described be one of our national leaders? That's where I think politics might be failing us.
Yes.
Okay, because that person should arrive.
Theoretically, yes.
Yes, they may not have the wealth.
Yes.
But they can move wealth. The public wealth.
Right.
Okay. The other thing would be, if I don't know how I can word this, the social media platform is there in its essence to have that conversation, but where is the concept of Big Brother Because I think there's elements of our society that are afraid of the dystopian things they see.
Yes.
I used to read Ayn Rand books, objectivism, and it was all about the individual, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the individual. All that isn't real healthy.
Right. Right.
The other thing too is the other question for you to comment on is, are these super uber wealthy folks using the excuse, well, why should I do this when we have all these public funds that are absolutely positively wasted?
Right.
That the U.S. government budget dwarfs what I actually have.
Right.
Why aren't they?
Yes. And I think the answer to both of those questions is the same, and it is that, all those thoughts make sense, and we haven't accepted yet. The government can't. No, not the government can't. The government could. The government isn't going to do this. The government isn't going to fix it.
That's the reality we need to face.
The reality is it doesn't work that way. Our government is not even attempting to actually fix the problems. And the evidence of that is that no problems ever get solved. Mm-hmm. Right? We are the wealthiest country on earth.
By far.
And no problem ever gets solved. So that means we don't even mean to solve the problems, right? I mean, think about it. Congress. So there are always bills that are going up for debate, and it'll be a bill on like, okay, you can't put deadly sweeteners in this drink, right? But in the midst of that bill, tucked somewhere is going to be, but we want $1 billion so we can bomb Libya. Right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
And so
why is it set up that way?
Well, because it's not meant to actually fix anything. It's not designed in that way. If they actually wanted to just fix problems, you would have a 2-page bill that explains why the sweetener is bad and say, okay, we're going to vote on this one thing. But they don't do that. They do this in this convoluted, weird, archaic way because they don't even mean for stuff to get done. It is simply a system that allows people to line their pockets and line the pockets of their friends and say that they're out doing some work. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, when I said I wanted to run for office, I had politicians call me and say, like, I think you're the kind of person that wants to save the world, and you can't do that in this job, right? And that told me everything. They
said that to you.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Career politicians.
Wow.
It simply isn't about that. That is not what we do. And so what that means is, as wrong as I believe that is, I can accept it.
Okay.
Right? So it means it just is what it is. You think the President of the United States can fix problems? Well, he can fix some problems by executive order. Donald Trump, made a bunch of executive orders that he probably believed helped some problem. Mm-hmm. Good for him. Mm-hmm. And Joe Biden came in and he undid a lot of what Trump did because he believed that was the way to fix it. Good for him. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, it would be simple and easy for us to fix certain problems. Homelessness shouldn't exist in America. Right. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Neither does hunger.
Exactly. Food insecurity in America? Are you kidding me?
Blows my mind.
Like, are you serious? You're going to tell me that there are billionaires, like more than one billionaire, and then there are also people within a 10-mile radius that don't have food or homes? Yeah. How? Right. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it's because we are not creating a world that would ever be designed, that is ever going to address those issues. And so what would have to happen is people would have to accept that and have to accept that, okay, the government isn't going to do it. They probably should, but they're not going to. So then I guess I have to do it.
So it's an excuse.
Yeah, it's people are saying, well, why? I mean, let's get the government to do it.
I pay enough taxes.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Right. But the fact of the matter is, once you start getting into the realm of money you don't actually need, in my opinion, the best idea is find a problem and fix it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
fascinating to me.
Because think about this. If let's say you and I are neighbors, we live beside each other, and last night there was a hurricane. Okay. And it just tore through our neighborhood and everything's in disarray. Walls fell down, windows broken, everything, right? I wake up in the morning, I tell my son, come on, son, we got to go fix this place up. We got to get our house together. We work on it. when my house is put back together, you know exactly what I'm going to do. And I know what you would do. If you got yours done before I got mine done, you'd come over, hey, man, you good? All right, hey, man, that wall looks like, you want me to help you with that? I'll get my stuff. That's what good humans do.
Right.
And we all know that. Right. But American culture...
Why does it stop there, though?
Because American culture teaches us that the basic values that we are taught as a kid, we are allowed to abandon them in pursuit of money. That's the only reason. We abandon what we know to be right and wrong because we have convinced ourselves that the pursuit of wealth is more important. Because I mean, I could do this all day. Think about kids on the playground. If there was one kid on the playground who had all the toys, and then there were a bunch of kids crying in the corner because they didn't have any toys, if that was your son, you'd walk up to the playground and you'd be like, "Son, seriously?
Right?
You got all the toys? All the toys? Did you not see that kid over there crying? What's wrong with you? You know you would do that, and I know I would do that. But as an adult, being Bill Gates, being Oprah, being any of the people, Jeff Bezos, nobody says, what is wrong with you? Because people idolize them. We idolize it. The reason Donald Trump is popular is because he's been very outspoken and loud about being wealthy. That's what made him popular.
That's exactly right.
It's it.
That's exactly right. That got him elected. That got him to the presidency.
That is his only claim to fame. And so you really got to ask yourself, what the heck is wrong with our culture if the thing we admire the most is wealth? You know what I mean? Right now, today, a billionaire is going to be more popular than the best third grade teacher that ever lived.
No question.
Right? I mean,
no question.
I say
money is sexy in this culture.
Yeah. And we just value the wrong stuff. I always say this, and people think I'm weird when I say this, but think about it. If you are the best at throwing a ball, you're going to make millions of dollars. If you are the best at educating people on math, you'll make $100,000.
If that.
If that.
Yeah.
And
priorities, man.
Think about what that means.
Yeah. And we all know that, yet we don't do anything about it.
That's right. and that's why I go back to what you live is what you believe. And so for me, what that means is when I have a little extra money, I send it to the politicians who are doing the stuff that I want them to do. I send it to the organizations that are doing the work that I want to see done. I, employ people. I give money to the right stuff. I spend my time in the places and the ways that I think I should. Right. If I've got $100 and I can buy tickets, I want to buy tickets to the opera instead of a baseball game. Not that the baseball game is a terrible thing, but I want to make sure that the arts are supported. Right. Because I believe it's important to our culture. You have to live the way you want to see the world. That's what we would have to do. And that's just very difficult because in the beginning it would be a lot of people going against the grain.
No question.
And so people are like, I don't want to, nobody wants to be the odd man out. So people are like, I don't know about that. But in my opinion, that's the only way we fix this. We fix this by agreeing to live the right way and not wait for anybody to fix it. And that's why I say, I thought this out, and because I'm a very liberal person, but I've come to the realization that I believe that the conservative mindset is actually, I don't want to say a better idea. They are right. Conservatives are right when they say, you shouldn't be told what you can and can't do. Everybody should be allowed to do what they want to do. You're right about that. That's the
freedom element.
The freedom element is accurate. The problem is that idea only works in a society where people want to be fundamentally good.
Yeah, people care about each other.
That's right.
It's utopia.
That's right.
Perfect.
Because if you do it that way, if you say, fine, you're allowed to do whatever you want to do.
It breeds selfishness.
Right. That's right. But if you said, okay, here's the thing. We're all going to agree to be good people and caring and loving. You do whatever you want to do. You can use your wealth in any way you want to, but be a good, solid person. You'd end up with utopia. You'd end up with a system where nobody goes without because Bill Gates gave all the homeless people homes, and now they have homes. And Elon Musk came through with some food, and like so on and so forth. And now there aren't any homeless people. Now there's no crime because there's no poverty. And everybody's kind of like, hey man, can I borrow some sugar? Absolutely. Are you kidding me?
The trend can start.
That's right. It would change the world.
Right.
It would change the world. But the problem is people think, no way, that can't happen. Well, what if we tried it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, what if we just tried to be nice to each other? And so that's what I've been saying about this whole the Dr. Seuss thing. Is people are mad at like.
Good segue, buddy.
Yeah.
This guy knows what he's doing.
I was thinking, how are we gonna get there?
Yeah, you did it.
But like, you think about the.
Let's unpack that though.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on the entire mess.
So
it's not even really a mess.
It's not a mess.
No.
It's actually
we've made it a mess.
We made it a mess, but it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
It's that in the face of a recognition that really what started it was the women's movement, like with Me Too and the Black Lives Matter and the civil rights kinds of folks exerting enough power through social media that companies got scared. They then said, oh crap, rather than get canceled, we will proactively look through our history and see if we can right some wrongs, because I don't want anyone coming at me. That's really all it is. People are just covering their butts, right? Or companies are covering their butts by saying, let's change the name and logo of this team because it's maybe insensitive and I'm tired of having this argument. Or I think Aunt Jemima was probably a bad look, so we're just going to change our mind, right? So then what happens is the average Joe is like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. So you mean to tell me we've got to be like ultra sensitive about everybody's feelings and care about it? Yes. Just be kind. I don't understand why that's difficult.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe that it's necessary to remove all Dr. Seuss books from libraries and from bookstores and to condemn Dr. Seuss as an awful person. It's just that a few of his works were very problematic. And so we recognize that, and let's maybe take them out of certain situations. I don't want 6-year-olds reading those books because they won't understand the nuances. So we'll just make it so that maybe you'll learn about them in 9th grade when you have the ability to, you see
appropriate
at the appropriate time. It's the same as like, Aunt Jemima was this image of this kind of servant black woman, very offensive to black people, a throwback to slavery and all that stuff, right? But
I can't believe it lasted as long as it did.
But it's because we devalue anything that's not mainstream. So now people are like, who cares what 12% of the population sees as offensive? So then we do it for 100 years, and now it's tradition. And so then it's like, well, I'm not changing my traditions for you because you complained. But at the core of it, it's just a lack of sensitivity, a lack of concern. And so that would be like me selling T-shirts that say, I hate bald white dudes. Like, you know what I mean? You'd be like, dude, I thought we were cool.
Right.
And I'd be like,
right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's not that big of a deal. Come on, get over yourself.
Yeah.
And I make $1 billion selling. Right. I hate. And
I can sell them. I can make money.
And that's right. I'm making money, and I'll take you out to dinner, and we'll call it even. And you're like, that's not cool, man.
Right.
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 If I'm a good person, I don't want to make you feel bad.
Of course.
It's just that simple.
I get it.
Now,
I get it.
Here's the thing: there are going to be things that you don't understand. They're going to be there. And my Achilles heel is women's rights stuff, because I am self-proclaimed, guy's guy, in the sense that, like, I'm steeped in the chauvinistic views of America. I know that I am, and I check myself at all times. But I know there are times when I'm like, so for example, like the way I'm wired, if I see a woman and she's pretty, I want to say, hey, you're very pretty. I want to do that because I was a photographer. Yeah. It's just the way I think.
Yeah.
But I'll say to my wife, am I allowed to tell her that she's pretty? No. Why? Because what you don't understand is that many men do that, and then there's the expectation that the woman is supposed to respond in some certain way. Right. Give you some play, whatever. Right. And too many guys will get angry if you say that. So even you, who I know doesn't mean it that way,
it's coming from a good place.
It's coming from a good place, but you don't understand. You're putting that woman in a very difficult situation where she now has to fear what would happen if she didn't respond well. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh shoot, that's a good point. Okay, fine, I'll be quiet. Like I'll fall back.
It's called learning.
That's right.
I mean, right?
But the problem is, people in power will be like, screw you, I don't care. That's what we do because it's American. It's every man for himself, and you don't actually have to care what anybody else thinks.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
The thing for me was with the whole thing was the fact that when I'm okay with examining someone's past, certainly, and it's a really interesting conversation about historical figures in time, and
right.
But this isn't. We're only talking 30, 40 years ago, and there's cartoons that are extremely racist in the worst way. Not only throw racism aside, they're just despicable.
Right. It's just not cool. Right. Right.
Yeah, despicable is the word for me.
Yeah.
And so my point is, how can you not look at what came out of the same author and not look at them in their entirety? I can't see how. It's too recent. If this was 300-400 years ago, I don't give them a pass either, but I don't know what society looked like then.
Right.
And it wasn't right then. Oppressing anybody wasn't right then, but society was different, and they were maneuvering in a different society.
In a different world, right.
We're talking 30, 40 years ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
You can't.
Yeah. You can't give them a free pass for that.
No, you can't. I can't.
No.
I can't.
I agree with you. But I think, again, it comes down to the fact that there are some people that literally have never thought about what this is like for anybody else.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And I tell you what makes it tough for Caucasian people, Doctor, is that we can't put ourselves in your shoe, and we know that. And I think some people who think about it can rationalize that.
Right.
Others dismiss it because they know they can't, and that's the mistake. When you dismiss the other person's feelings, because you
just because you
can't
don't understand,
get there,
right?
You don't try,
right?
Even to try to relate,
right,
in any way.
And so I'll give you a perfect example. Just the other day, I was having a conversation with a guy I really like, and he's a conservative. Mm-hmm. He's a Republican, and we were talking about the whole the election and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, because he knows that I'm liberal, and he said, I just don't understand the liberal perspective. And
paint with a broad brush there.
Right.
Where do you go with that?
But what I said to him was, listen, I can help you with this. The Republican mindset is essentially, leave me to my own devices. It's every man for himself. I will make my own way, but just get out of my way. Don't get in my way.
Okay.
And everybody has the ability and right to go do whatever, make their life into whatever they want to make it into. And your rights are of the utmost importance. And the democratic or liberal viewpoint is basically everyone should have a level and reasonable playing field. We should make sure everybody's okay, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. I don't think that they are opposites, right? The left and the right are not true. The core values are not opposite. Mm-hmm. The problem is the conservative viewpoint of, you shouldn't be telling me what I can and can't do. Everyone should have the freedom to do everything that they want to do. It's every man for himself. That's all well and good if the field is level.
No doubt. It's not.
It's just not.
No.
Right?
Well, never has been.
It never has been. And so if you're being truly honest with yourself and you're a conservative, you should actually,
Sorry.
You should be fighting for liberal values so that we can get to the level playing field,
so it works.
So that your idea actually works.
Yeah.
That is the only way.
Yep.
Because the fact of the matter is, today there's a little kid in Chicago who was born in abject poverty, with guns blazing around him, with rats crawling over him, or him and his mom live under the bridge. You're going to tell me that it's every man for himself?
Right. That's exactly right.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it does not.
So The only way your every man for himself system works is if you first level it out. And then if you want to make it every man for himself after that, God bless America. But first things first, let's make it so that it's right. But in America, there is no incentive to do that.
No, there's no incentive to do that.
Because with this whole free market capitalism thing, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah. Which
is also, in its essence, dystopian.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I don't understand how people can't look at this and go, oh, this will never work. Even in theory, it won't work. Because humans are never going to voluntarily take less, right? If you give them the opportunity to be as greedy as they want to be, people are just going to be like, all right, cool. I don't care what you get. You told me I don't have to care what you get.
Right. And that gets back to the whole legislating morality thing.
Right.
And that's a slippery slope. It's like, how do you...
Yeah. And so I really feel like you can't legislate it. You can't make people be good people.
Yeah. Right.
You have to just encourage good behavior.
Right.
And people have to agree, I want to be a good person. I don't want to suck at life. And so I have a whole bunch of money. On an individual level, I think anyone that you know, anyone that walks this earth understands if the most if Donald Trump, I would hope Donald Trump, anybody, and a hardcore Republican or conservative that has tons and tons of money walks into a school and sees that the school doesn't have money to feed the kids lunches, so the kids are all eating crackers and drinking water every day for lunch. I think you would intuitively know, oh shoot, I should probably feed these kids. You would know that.
There should be no probably about it.
Exactly. The problem is we don't actually think that way. We don't think about that there is a kid sitting in that situation right now. And your policy of like, I don't have to give my money to the greater good makes it so that kid won't eat.
Right.
But because that money has to come from somewhere. So
they think the argument, doctor, will be why pay enough in taxes, and that's what the taxes should do.
Yeah,
that's what the argument is.
You're absolutely right, and the problem is it doesn't work that way, right?
Work.
And it doesn't work that way, as evidenced by the fact that here we are.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
I mean, the government proves itself every day.
And so I always say, I've been saying this. I am baffled by this. I don't understand how we're still doing this, because it's a terrible idea. And think about it like this. When you're a little kid, someone made up a game one day, right? You're playing with your friends in the neighborhood, and someone says, I don't want to play tag. I want to play this different game. Let's do this. Here's what we should do. But imagine it. Someone says, all right, we're going to play this game where it's every man for himself, and you can make as much money as you want to make. And you're like, okay, and then what? Well, nothing. It's just you make as much money as you want to make, and that's kind of the point. Are there any rules? Not really. Just make as much money as you want to make. Okay, then what do you do with the money? Whatever you want. So you do that. And eventually what's going to happen is you realize, well, this is dumb, because Sally, she's not making any money because nobody likes the stuff that she does. And Jamal and Jose, they're like behind the eight ball because, Billy is employing them, but he doesn't pay them a lot of money. So they can barely...
Right.
They can barely pay their rent. Jimmy lives under the bridge. Like, this is a dumb game. Let's stop doing this. But the people over here who are winning, they're like,
it's the greatest game in the world.
Screw you.
Right.
This is a cool game.
Right.
Right. But because of the whole every man for himself idea, you're not really compelled to think about, wait a minute, there are millions of homeless and hungry people? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
In a country that is this wealthy.
Supposedly.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. And so what I would advocate for is we say, this is dumb, let's stop doing this, let's do it different. But I've said I want an economist or a political science expert to come onto my show and explain to me why we can't do it. Because people say to me, you can't just do that. You can't just change the system. And I'm like, why? I don't get it, because this is dumb. Like this is a dumb idea. Anytime you have billionaires. I mean, if think about it, if you go to Santa Monica or Beverly Hills, any place where there's this ultra wealth, right? You could drive 5 minutes and find people living in cardboard boxes.
In their alley.
Right.
Behind their home.
And so what that means is you got Sylvester Stallone living right here. And in order for him to get into his driveway, he has to look past a person that literally doesn't have anything. And you have to be okay with driving past him and not helping him. And the only way that makes sense is if you value your money more than you value that person. Mm-hmm. Because there's no other way to do that. If you told me right now, man, I really don't know how I'm going to eat today because we don't have any money. It's hard times, and you could be saying like, listen, it's not your problem. I just needed to vent for a second. Yeah. But you know what I would do. Absolutely. And you would do it too. Absolutely. But when you get past the one-on-one, mm-hmm. we stop thinking like that. Yes. Because when you're driving down, if you're on, you're at the Fort Pitt Bridge, you're about to go through the tunnel, and there's somebody with that hole in the cardboard sign saying need money, mm-hmm. we are trained to look away. Yes, we are. Yeah. I'm guilty. Yeah, me too. Guilty. I mean, and I once I figured this out, I started saying to myself, all right, I have to live differently. So now I try to give. I try mm-hmm. to when I have it. I don't always have because I'm not independently wealthy. Right. But when I have it, I want to give a 20. I don't want to give a $2. I don't want to give you $2. Yeah. But that's a privilege, mm-hmm. right? Because I know lots of people in America that make $40,000 a year. They can't give you a 20 every time they see a homeless person. They can't. Right. Right. So what that means is that it's on the people who have cracked the code and have millions. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. I say this and people always think I'm joking. If you hand me $1 billion today, I'm giving away like 99% of it. Yep. Because what would you do with it? Like, why would you need it? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. So you want to solve problems. That's how right. You're wired. I'm wired. I'm like, I look around at the world. I'm like, I think I could fix this. And maybe that's delusional. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, I'm like, I think we could do better than this as a society. I posed that to one person, and they said to me, I would go solve that homeless problem. If I had that money, I'd solve that homeless problem, let's say, in XYZ city, and then like a year later, 10% of those people will be homeless again because they just don't want to be helped. So what? There's 90% of the people that you change their life. You're not going to hit a home run every time you're at bat. Right. It's not going to be 100% efficiency. This is a zero-sum game. Right. So and people, that's right. That's what people say. They say that though. People would say, my idea is, and I swear to you, if I ever get to the point where I have put aside enough money that my wife can never say like, we're worried about money. Right. I'm going to, let's say I put $10 million aside, which is, it sounds silly to say that because most people would never reach that amount of money. But I promise you, if I ever reach the amount of money that makes my wife feel like we're good now, we've already had this conversation, and I had to make her a promise. I'll put enough money aside for us and the kids. Mm-hmm. After that, I promise you, I'm giving away all the rest of the money. Right. And my theory is, you pick a little town, and you just end homelessness in that town. And then what will happen is you'll notice that town has less crime. Of course. That the people are kinder to each other. Of course. And I believe it would become this loving community because people would feel compelled to help each other because someone came and helped them. Mm-hmm. And it would all of a sudden be this like loving environment. And it'd be like... Now, could that be the spark? And that's my opinion. It would spark some... I hope. I could be wrong. But the detractors would say, yeah, you're going to give all those people homes, and then you're going to come back 10 years later, and their homes are going to be all junked up, and half of them are going to lose their homes and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, I recognize you can't just give away homes and then walk away. You got to still care. You got to be invested, still be there. And there's got to be some mechanism for helping for the people who aren't necessarily on their feet. But just like you said, if I give away 100 homes and 10 of those people end up back in poverty 2 years later, Why are we focused on that?
What does that matter? It matters.
It matters,
but they matter.
Right, and here's the thing. I'm not saying I don't care about those 10 people, and I'm not going to come back and help them.
Exactly. Bingo.
What I'm saying is, isn't the world better now? Because those 90 people who are good and on their feet now are volunteering at the soup kitchen every Saturday because they feel compelled to. Isn't this a better world? How is that not a better world?
I think it's symptomatic of the way people think. We're just living in absolutes.
Yeah.
Everything's an absolute law.
Right.
It's well, it wouldn't work all the time. Right.
Right.
Nothing works all the time.
And let's try it and see how good it is.
Of course. I mean, come on.
Like, how difficult is that?
I don't know, my friend. You good on time?
I don't even know what time it is. What time it is? I didn't even look.
I got about almost 12.
Okay, we're good.
All right.
I'll talk a little while because I hate to run. This is fun for me.
Dude, I loved speaking with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
But I tell you what, it's weird to me that these thoughts seem novel to people. Because
what do you mean?
I tell you what, when I think about the idea, I'm fundamentally convinced that homelessness, food insecurity, these are issues that could be solved in the very, very basic, simple way of like some person
through philanthropy.
Yeah, some person just literally fixing it. Take their own personal money and fix it. And people are like, yeah, but who would do that? And what I think is, that's so weird to me that
you almost want to say, well, who wouldn't do that given the resources?
Exactly. I'm like, what is wrong with us that no one has thought to do that? Like, you mean to tell me
we've had celebrities buy towns, man?
Yeah.
For ego.
For fun.
Like we had a couple of actresses in the 80s that had money. They bought whole towns in Wyoming. They wanted to own a town.
And here's my thing. You know, you mentioned ego, and that's an important thing for me because I would want a society in which it is cool to help people, right? I want to be able to say like, oh man, guess what I did today? Man, I gave 20 people homes today. It was so cool. What'd you do today? Only 10? Oh my goodness, man, you're a slacker. You know what I mean? Like razzing your friends like, like, man, you know, would you believe that little league team didn't even have like new uniforms? So I just went and bought them.
Right.
And
see, the wealthy could be having those conversations with each other.
That's what I'm saying. And being like, because right now you got, you know, I'll pick on rap videos, even though that is not a real problem. But like, you got rap videos where people are showing off their rims and their gold and their money and blah blah blah, because that's the culture of kind of like being boastful. What I would wish for in my rap videos, we're gonna be at the soup kitchen like, yeah, I'm making it rain. Like, yeah, I'm feeding all these people, because
it's just a shift.
What, like, why is that not cool? Like, what? So you think it's cool to hoard your money? That's weird to me. I don't get it. Why does that seem cool to you? You know, I want a world in which people get off on helping each other, like, because that's what feels good to me.
Yeah.
And you know, when you help somebody close on a house and it's their dream house and it's their
it's why I do this. It's the best feeling in the world.
It's the best
for me.
Feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
When somebody's got a tear in their eye, they're like, thank you, this was my first home, this was a huge dream, no one before me and my family ever had a home. You go home feeling all warm and fuzzy.
Unbelievable. Yep.
And I'm like, so why don't we just all do that? Like, why don't we just like do nice things for each other? You know what I mean? Like, how novel is that? That's not weird.
Look at people you counsel. Like, depression's a big thing, right? Some depression can be tied to being lonely or not having good feelings. You're not deriving good feelings from other people.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. And I mean, like, there are so many people who come to see me, and it drives me crazy because the thing that would fix their life is an infusion of like some sort of love. Like, whether it's, you know, give them $100,000, they can pay off all their debt. Now they don't feel the pressure of all that debt.
Yeah.
And most of those people, if you did that, they would turn around and go do nice things for other people. But it is literally unethical for me to just say, here, I'll give you $100,000. I don't have the $100,000 to give them, but I'm saying if I did, it would be unethical in my field to just fix the problem.
Right.
So I'm like, that's weird. You don't want me to fix the problem.
Money needs to be a tool for the good. It's a tool.
It's just a tool.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
But it's hoarded. When it's hoarded, it's not a tool.
Right, because in America, we've made money a goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem. The problem is that money in America is actually an end in and of itself, and it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Money it's a tool. It's something that can be used to do cool things. And we've made it very important in our culture, and that's fine if you want money to be the thing that drives everything, but it shouldn't be a goal in and of itself.
Yeah.
In America, people want to be wealthy simply so they can be wealthy.
To brag about it.
Right. They just want to be, I just want to be able to say I'm wealthy. No, I want freedom.
Yeah.
I want the freedom that comes with money.
That's enticing to me.
Yeah. And so I pursue money with the best of them. But my goal, my intention is I want to buy my freedom. I want to buy the freedom of my children, and then beyond that, I want to buy everybody else's freedom.
Right.
If I had Bill Gates' money, there would be no homeless people, no hungry people within a 20-mile radius of me. Period. Because I was raised proper. I know how to share.
Right.
Right. I mean, to me, if you say you have $100 million and living outside of your driveway is a guy living on cardboard boxes with like an old dirty blanket covering him, something's wrong.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree.
And so I think, I think it's so strange that's a novel idea. And I think it's just like, maybe people like us were born in the wrong time or something. I don't know.
It could be.
But there are people who think like this. We're not alone.
No.
It's just that we're the minority.
There's no question about it.
You know what I mean?
There's no question.
And people are like, it doesn't work that way. But it only doesn't work that way because we agreed to.
We're choosing.
That's right. We are choosing a different system. And we're choosing a system that, in my opinion, can't possibly help us.
Agreed.
It doesn't work. If we value money more than we value people, then you will always have these problems play out. If you take away the greed part, I think racism would go away. I think poverty would go away. I think sexism would go away. It would all go away because if you fundamentally want everybody to be okay, then you don't have any reason to separate and divide and right? All that stuff is just a mechanism to give myself a little extra footing. That's all it is.
Well, yeah, the concentration on differences is exacerbated when the goal is the hoard currency.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
If there's think about it. In utopia, if you close your eyes and think of what utopia would look like, you don't pay for stuff. You don't, you know what I mean? Like, so if it's a utopian society, and I have a ton of money and you have none, I'd be, oh, here, man. Here.
Everybody has what they need.
Yeah. It'd be like, oh, you're low on money? Oh, man, here. Why didn't you say something? You know what I mean? Because what difference would it make?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. All right. Help me understand this. It's
All
a
right.
little bit of a slippery slope for me.
Okay.
When the discussion invariably comes up of race and the N-word comes up.
Yeah.
I feel that white people are in a very clear-cut circumstance the way I view it, but apparently a lot of white folks feel they're in a tough spot.
Yeah.
I've heard it that way. It's not tough to me because, first off, the word doesn't belong in society,
right,
as far as I'm concerned, because of what that word means to a portion of our society.
Right.
So it's an abhorrent word that should not be used at all. And I think that's a pretty reasonable thing.
That's a reasonable. That's a reasonable thought. Yes.
As a functioning adult, that's reasonable to me. I don't spend a lot of time because it's just something I wouldn't do.
Right.
Okay. All right. That being said, I had a podcast where we were talking about it, Doctor, and I made the comment that I don't understand how it is a thing in black culture, entertainment-wise, that is thrown about so flippantly.
Yes.
The reason I don't understand it isn't because there's a jealousy I want to use it too. It's nothing to do with that. I don't know how
this even happened.
How do we get? Can we get past it? When I say get past it, I mean like eviscerate it from the dialogue or the narrative.
Yes.
Not forget about it. History is there.
Right.
But if we don't want that word floating around the narrative of society, why do we as a people, keep saying it?
Yeah.
And so am I wrong as a white person? Because then I was told that Black America can take back ownership of that word by using it.
Right.
So I'm trying to understand that. I just can't get there.
Yeah. So this is actually, that's a really good question. And
it comes from a point of love. This is not a point of,
absolutely.
I wouldn't say that word if my life depended on it.
So here's there are a lot of nuances.
Okay.
There are a lot of things to think about. One is the idea that in a perfect world, that word wouldn't even exist, right? Mm-hmm. But given that it does exist and the damage that it has done to many people, it is relatively adaptive that Black people decided to kind of reclaim it for themselves.
Okay.
So there's some adaptive nature to it, attempting to take the sting away.
Okay.
The problem, though, is that it's not that simple. While taking the sting away, I do believe it also perpetuates part of the problem.
Okay.
And so theoretically, I would want that word eradicated from all culture, not just Black culture. I think we should just get rid of it. It's just that everybody's not in the same place, and so you can't tell people stop using it. Right. Again, you can't tell anybody what to do. So
can't outlaw words.
Right. So Black people saying, I've adopted this word, I've taken the sting away from it, we've altered it, we've reclaimed it. Okay, fine. So then what happens is the next best thing is for white America to accept, that's not about me, that's not my word. Right. I just have to leave it alone. I don't get why they do it, but they do it, and that they're allowed.
I think that's where we're at right now.
Right. And for most people, I think that's reasonable. But the problem is that a lot of people don't recognize how damaged Black culture is.
Okay.
And when I say that, I mean Black people. A lot of Black people don't understand the depths of the psychological damage that was done to us through slavery and oppression. And not, I shouldn't say that past tense, it's still being done today.
Agreed.
So there are people who would argue that it's good and healthy and adaptive that we reclaim that word, but they're not recognizing that the way we tend to use it today, the way rappers and movies and still use it, it actually perpetuates the problem just as much as it kind of affirms the other side.
And that was my humble statement.
Yeah.
And looking at the
it's
entire
truth.
narrative.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of ignorant white people in this country that I think the minority of people of this white group of people that use the word, the minority who use it as a hateful way. I think a lot of young people coming up who enjoy the Black culture in regards to music, hear it, they don't understand the context.
They don't get it.
They're saying it as music lyrics where we should not be saying that.
And so then what happens is, out of ignorance, we perpetuate the ignorance.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my only point.
You're 100% right, and here's the problem. You can't say that.
I try. I can say it with you because you understand.
Right. And so what I mean by that is I've learned this in my life firsthand. So, like, culture is like, for lack of better words, it's a team, okay, or a family. So the Black population as a whole is like, the Black delegation or the team or the tribe or whatever you want to call it, right? We've got a bunch of issues that are our issues to address for us. And it's like, think of it like your family.
Okay.
There might be something going on in your home, in your family, and I might see it as your neighbor. I can see what's happening. But if I come over to your house and say, hey man, listen, I really think you ought to let your daughter do X, Y, and Z.
None of my business.
You'll be like, why are you over here telling me what I should do? Right. And so when I attempt to say to women, and I learned my lesson. When I would attempt to say to women, yeah, but if you would just do this, I don't think some of these problems would happen. It is not received well. Why? That is not your place. You don't get to do that, right?
Understood.
You could be 100% right. You still can't say it.
Understood.
And because there's a power differential. And so like me as a male saying to women, if you would just do this, that is a very privileged position, and it's condescending, and it's based on the power differential that shouldn't be there in the first place, right? And by the same token, as a white person, you say to black people, I really don't think you should be using that word. Black people rightfully will be saying, where do you get off, being...
I understand that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
I get it.
The problem is oftentimes, and I say this to black people and they get really mad, oftentimes it is people outside of our culture who can actually see it clearly, because they're not damaged by the things that we are damaged by.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
And so so for example, I'll go back to Mitt Romney. I always use Mitt Romney as an example because I remember this very vividly. Mm-hmm. I was old enough to be able to see everything clearly when this happened. Mitt Romney in a town hall meeting, someone asked him, "What are you going to do about violence in inner cities and stuff like that?" And he said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to address single parent homes. We're going to address, stuff like that. And black communities went nuts. They were like, how dare he say that? But I'm like, here's the thing. He's right. You don't like it that he's right, but he's right. Mm-hmm. Because we have hundreds of years of research that says the breakdown of homes mm-hmm. created a shift in our values. And so the breakdown in the homes it creates poverty, it creates the need for crime, and the need for crime creates this violence that you're seeing in the communities. And so, yes, if you went all the way back and you addressed what's going on in these homes, you actually would see within a few years a significant decrease in the crime in these cities. Mm-hmm. And that's not about race. That's not about that. That's simple factual information that is researched.
Statistics.
It's statistically sound.
Yeah.
Right. And people are
it's personal.
Right. People are offended by that because you got a lot of people who've been I'm raised by a single mom. So you're like, oh, so you're saying that my home is problematic? No.
Taking it personal.
Right. What I'm saying and what Mitt Romney was saying was, if you address these problems over here, it will trickle down to these problems over here, because we happen to know what leads to these problems, mm-hmm. and we have to address the root causes. Okay. And you can dislike it if you want to. It can feel bad, but it's still true, right? And so what happens is black communities get angry because it feels like you're saying, oh, you're saying it's our fault. No, it's not your fault. Yeah. I know you didn't create the system that put black men in jail and mm-hmm. killed black men. I know you didn't bring the drugs to your communities. I know you didn't create the poverty and this, all the stuff. But it's there.
Right.
So we should probably fix it.
Yep.
And it feels too personal, so people feel attacked.
Okay, I get that.
You know what I mean?
I get that.
And so when you're saying to black people, I'm not sure you should be saying this word, it feels like, so basically what you're telling me is you get to break my community, you get to oppress me, mm-hmm. and then when I do something and reclaim it for myself so I don't have to feel bad about this word anymore, I can't do that either? Are you serious? Mm-hmm. Right? That's what it feels like. And so I'm like, yeah, all right. So then the message has to come from the right place. But the fact of the matter is, it's still true, mm-hmm. right? It's still true.
I think maybe it's not.
I'm 100%. I'm convinced.
In the whole narrative, in society's narrative, colorless narrative, it's there.
Right.
If we want to get past it, we have to quit using it.
Right.
In the vernacular. I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast the other day with two of the funniest people, Danielle Rawlings and the three of them were just cutting up the entire time. But these two guys used the N-word almost every sentence.
Yeah.
And there's Joe. Not that Joe should use that word, but it was just funny because, like, it was a weird conversation.
Yeah.
Man. And I don't know. And Joe, I could tell, was uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I don't feel bad for him. I'm just saying, I think he was conversationally uncomfortable.
And it is difficult. And I know a lot of people who are like that. My brother's like that. My brother will use it it's interchangeable, dude, man.
Right.
You know, it's he uses that word. He would say it to you.
Oh yeah, I have friends that call me that out of love,
and that's right. And
that's what it
for
is.
them, it's loving. For them, it's that
and they are black, by the way.
Right. That's important.
That's all I need.
Right.
Context for people.
Yes, but so functionally in that person's life, they're saying, listen, I'm not attaching all this other meaning to it.
I get that.
It's just a word.
Yeah, I get it.
The problem is, in a perfect world, in the macro sense, we really should get rid of it because of everything that's attached to it. But people are saying, yeah, but I'm not thinking about everything that's attached to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it's just weird. It's really weird. Context is everything.
It is.
We got to teach kids that about life in general.
Yeah.
That's not being taught at a young age.
And I think what's important is teaching people, just remember to pay attention to the subtleties and the nuances and try to be kind. That's it. If you do that,
life's easier.
I mean, so many problems get taken care of.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
No doubt.
It's just as simple as like, listen, let's just try to be kind to each other. Let's just try to be good folks. And then all of a sudden, like somebody using that word, you're like, all right, I get it. You're allowed to use it. I'm not allowed to use it. I wish you didn't use it, but whatever. And then if we do the right stuff, eventually what will happen is, you know,
by example.
Yeah, by example. I don't talk like that, and so then my son isn't going to talk like that. Right. And what happens is eventually the problem takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. But what we do in America is it creates a fight. Oh, well, if you say it, I'm allowed to say it.
Yeah, which is insane.
And now it's an issue.
That's the conversation I had. The woman was like, well, no one should use that word. I said, well, are you jealous?
Yeah.
Are you coming from a position of jealousy? Do you really want to? She goes, I would never say that word. Well, then you're not jealous. Then.
Right.
Then why do you really care? I'm saying observationally, I don't know how we'll get past as a society if it keeps becoming, if it stays in the vernacular.
Right.
That's my only question.
And I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. But the fact of the matter is,
that question can't come from me.
Yes, that's right. It can't come from you because it won't be perceived well.
Correct.
And again, you want to be mindful of people's feelings. Mm-hmm. And so I can say that, and people will roll their eyes, but they'll accept that I'm allowed to say it.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And they might even push back, but they're not going to say I'm not allowed to say it. They're going to say you just can't do it.
Of course not.
You can't have this conversation. And I get why, but I tell you what, it's very difficult because, as someone who lives a life basically attempting to, my mind is like constantly trying to figure out the puzzle.
You're very pragmatic.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like,
you can detach the emotion from the.
That's right.
Yeah, that probably makes you very skilled at what you do for a living too.
And yes, and what's interesting is inside of a clinical session, my mind is like the best thing you could ever have. It's like I can detach, or I can empathize to the nth degree, and we can problem solve together. We can figure it out, and I'm always going to be 100% honest with you. In regular life, people are like, yo, whoa, you can't say that to me. And I'm like, what do you mean you have feelings about that? Why would you feel something? I'm just telling you facts. Right? It's just,
you have to have that buffer there.
Yeah,
put that buffer in there.
Yeah. And so it's really, really interesting. And now like I said, now that I understand how to name what it is that makes me tick, or a part of what because I don't think autism is me. That's not who I am, right?
It's define you.
It doesn't define me, but it's a big part.
But nothing defines you.
That's right.
Nothing should really define. Not one thing should define any of us.
And so what I've learned is, all right, now I understand part of what makes me tick, and so that makes it so that I can explain it a little better now, and more importantly, I can understand. Right. So I used to think, why do I see it so differently than they see it? But now I understand. So now I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And going on about my business.
Got it.
Because I used to be like, what is happening here? But now I'm like, no, I get it. I understand what's happening. I'm just wired differently. I can accept that I'm always going to see the walls as blue when you say they're pink. I'm always going to do that. And I can accept, I don't need for you to see them my way.
Right.
But it's important to me that you see or that I at least offer you, hey, you know, if you saw it the way I saw it, I think some of the problems that you're talking about would go away. And because think about it, you know, anyone who has ever had a life-changing or world-changing idea had to convince everybody else to see it that way.
No doubt.
That's what it is.
Look at the courage involved with that.
That's right. So when Martin Luther King was saying, you know what, I think we should do this. I don't think we should do it your way. I think we should probably try to do it differently. It took a lot of people going, that's a good point, right? And trying it differently. And then the world changes.
No doubt.
And so that is a very courageous thing. And now that and I'm not at all saying like I'm like Martin Luther King. What I'm saying is anyone who thinks outside of the box is extraordinary in our culture in their opportunity to change the world.
Right. But that's what it requires.
That it requires that we have people who think differently. Because if everybody thinks the same, then we're going to get this until the end of time. And in my opinion,
this won't sustain itself.
This will not. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The world is going to implode if we don't change.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Ooh, doctor, man.
It was good, right?
Yeah, it's always good.
Yeah.
Can we do it a little like sooner? Can I have you back in a couple of weeks? I mean, you know, that was a little too long of a time frame there.
Yeah.
But
no. I honestly,
see you, my friend.
I mean this in all honesty. This is fun for me because
this is a good setting for you.
Yeah, it really is because I get to come here, and the whole way over, I was like, oh man, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, and there are very few places where I'm allowed to just let my mind roam, and so
I always have it here.
Yeah.
I have some other ideas I want to talk about too.
Okay.
But are you still doing House Call?
I am. Yeah.
And it's on YouTube.
It is. House Call is on YouTube. House Call with Dr. Rueben Brock. But I tell you what, the thing that I'm really pushing for right now is that people check out this movie that I did.
Yeah.
It's called Discovering Autism. You can also find that on YouTube. It is part of my
Discovering Autism.
Discovering Autism. I hope people check it out. And the reason
today.
And I think that the cool thing about it is you get a glimpse into what it feels like in the autistic mind. What I've learned is that people say that's what they're taking away from it, is that they actually get to, it's like your window into the autistic experience.
Okay.
And I never thought of it that way. I was just documenting my experience, but
boy, you've been busy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes.
I don't know where you find the time.
Yes. It is housed on my vlog. I have a vlog called Fatherhood on the Back Nine. Right. I couldn't even think of it.
No.
Fatherhood on the Back Nine. It's all about my life experiences as a dad.
Yeah.
Because that's what's most important to me.
Yep.
And I just put out this little 18-minute film, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback for it. So I'm hoping everyone goes and checks it out.
Absolutely. Discovering Autism.
Discovering Autism. Yeah. And but more than anything, I say just be you. Everybody out there.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be different.
No doubt. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll see you very soon here.
Yes, very soon.
All right, friends.
Cool.
We are out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.